So my name is Taylor Mendel, and I co-own and operate Footprint Farm with my husband Jake, who will probably be coming in out of the rain at some point here. So we're small. We manage about 3 acres outdoor growing space, and we grow on just an acre and a half each season. And then we have about a 1/4 acre that are in unheated high tunnels. So really small, but we do grow year round. Here in Vermont, we're zone 4. So year round is pretty intense at some points of the year. And that does play into this building. So key factor number 1, we are year round production in a cold climate. The next factor is our markets. So we started in 2013, and we were always pretty equally divided between a farmer's market, a single farmer's market, a CSA that ran mostly summer, fall, and then a hodgepodge of different wholesale customers, mostly like specialty things like caterers or very specific types of restaurants, that sort of thing. We, since 2020, are mostly CSA based now. We're not doing the farmers market anymore. And we have a CSA that runs beginning of April until the week before Christmas. And we have so right now we have 100 members, and it goes up to 150 in June, and then back down to about 120 for those wintry months. And this space, another thing you'll see, it's very modular, and that has been a godsend during our switching up of markets, because last year we were doing fully packed shares. We do a CSA that's, the normal prescribed items. And then we also have an online store where people can add all sorts of different things from different vendors. And so it was very complicated with lots of spreadsheets and organization. And this space was really awesome for that. But I want to start quickly if I can. It's raining here pretty hard. And so I don't know how the sound is going to be, but we'll give it a try. I'll start us outside so you can see the flow of produce here. And just in case the wind is bad, I won't talk a whole lot, but I do want to show you the outside of our building really quickly. And I will turn you around. So this is the outside of our building here. And you'll notice there's a deck there. We live upstairs. And so this entrance there, that's the entrance up into our employee area and into our house. We just recently put this sort of underneath roof here so that this is a relatively dry space, even when it's raining, which is awesome today. So we have all of our produce enter here onto this patio. And then this is our spray zone out here. These are those plastic coated shelving for a closet or something. We use a ton of these because we can set it up however we want. There's some more of them. And then we have dirty produce entering this way. And then I just wanted to show that so that you have a sense of what this building looks like. And then I'll back up for a second. So this is our 9th season. We started out in our first couple years for WashPack. We just had a bathtub and a sink that we found both on the side of the road that we had under shade cloth, which worked okay until we realized, so Vermont's a really competitive small scale farming market. And so we needed to up our game in produce longevity. So how long it lasts in storage once it gets to a customer. And we needed to really up our game on look and overall quality of the produce. So we put a lot of attention into designing a WashPack space that could be used year round pretty early on, and got a ton of really amazing technical help from UVM Extension, which I don't know if we can toss a link to their website into the chat maybe. But they have, since we started, so we sort of designed this building in tandem with them creating a lot of new resources on like drains and different types of wall coverings you might want to have, and different triple wash setups, things like that. And so we got a ton of help from them. And we have also gotten a lot of different types of grants to help with this space. So we've gotten a produce safety grant. We got a renewable energy grant that helped pay for solar for this building. And then we also got a grant to improve our capacity for wintertime storage and production that also went into this building. So as far as construction considerations, I'll start there. As I mentioned, we do live upstairs and it's really cold here in the wintertime. So this building is overbuilt for most people's WashPack considerations. The walls, there's one behind me. The walls are extra thick so that we could put more insulation into them. And it's a blown cellulose insulation, which was something we wanted to do, just kind of more of an environmental thing. And so that meant that we had to research different types of wall interior coverings. And I wish I knew the name for it, but it's on one of those UVM guides. But so there's blown insulation in here, and then there's this breathable membrane that holds the insulation in. So instead of plywood or something like that. And then this is just metal roofing that we priced out different washable interiors, like the dairy board and the cool connecting pieces types of walls. And this one for us ended up being the cheapest option because we could get it. Our ceilings are 9 foot, so they're a little bit taller than the standard 8 foot pieces of material. And so we were able to get the roofing at the height that we wanted from a local producer, and it just ended up being a lot cheaper. So that's what we chose for the interior covering. You can see our ceiling is plywood, and we did 3 coats of a high gloss paint. If you can spring for it, there's cool deck or like boat paints, which are super cleanable and really great. We didn't feel like we could spring for it, so we just got a really high gloss paint that we did there. And then we have I'll walk backwards, in the back part of the room where we didn't feel like there was going to be a lot of water, we did more of the plywood down the walls because it was just cheaper that way. Other construction considerations, our walk-in is a cool bot, and we decided not to get a full regular refrigeration setup, mostly because we don't have a lot of good access to HVAC repair people. I've heard that it's really hard to get somebody good out when you need them. And so we were like, well, let's just put a cool bot in with a really big AC, and we'll just plan on replacing the AC every couple of years. And this was a huge question because the AC unit is on an exterior wall, which means there's a gaping hole in our very expensive insulated wall. And we were worried that in the wintertime, when it's below 0, was so much cold going to come through that AC that it was going to freeze our produce, and that hasn't happened. So 3 years, 3 winters in, and I can confidently say that has not been a problem for us. And we decided not to put that AC unit inside because of the condensation dripping into our interior space. And the last thing I'll say about construction, no, I'll talk about the floor too, but one other thing I'll say about construction is that this space, you can see that pipe behind me, because we live upstairs and this space is really humid because so much water is going through it. We put in an air exchange system so that air is continuously being moved through the building, and we have heat pumps that heat and cool the space, and they also dry the space. So if you can spring for heat pumps if you're doing any climate control, I would highly recommend it because they help dry a space out really quickly, which helps with longevity of anything you have in the space. That, like, we have a wooden post right there that holds up our house. And so the ability to dry this space out really quickly was important to us. It's also helpful with drying out like these wash tubs behind me. Having it dry out overnight is really helpful for reducing different contaminants that could have been on those spaces. And the last building consideration for us was the ground. The floor is a slab that is poured. We have a frost wall and slab. And one thing people usually ask, it's a bath. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know all of the technical terms, but we asked bathtub lip. So you can see down here, maybe the foundation, this is the frost wall. It comes up so that if water were to hit here, it's not hitting directly on our wall. So the actual foundation comes up around the edges. And I really like that. The other thing is that we had this trench drain installed, and on that UVM website, there's a really great link to a PDF with different types of trench drains that you could have. And that's one thing that I would say, if you're doing new construction or if you're putting a floor in with a drain, I would say put a drain in if you can, absolutely. But that drain is going to look different based on what your production is. So we don't wash roots inside our space. We have that spray zone outside, and then we don't do a lot of storage crops. So we're not washing, thousands and thousands of pounds of carrots in this space. So we don't have a ton of sediment. And this drain just has these removable, that one is locked. Let me find one that's not locked in. Here's one. So this is designed for a, I gotta set this down, hold on. This is designed for a garage. So it's a prefab plastic drain that is dirty right now, but you can see it's black plastic. And then it has these great tops that just sit right in so that things can roll over it smoothly. You could also frame in a drain into the slab itself with the pitch that you need to get the water to flow down. And a lot of people who are moving a lot of sediment through their process, they'll make it like the width of a flat shovel so that you can go through and scoop out the drain if you need to. Be warned, I did hear recently that you want to make it a width that you can find a great top that fits it. So these come standard to a few different sizes, and you can get ones that will set into a drain that's not prefab, it's just like a cutout in your foundation, but they're only in certain sizes. So you need to make sure that you're making a match. And another question people ask about the drain usually is, where does it flow to? So we do have a septic system in this building. So all of our possibly contaminated water, so our employee bathroom and sinks that we were using, we don't have chickens anymore, but we used to wash eggs in here. Those drains go into our septic system. This drain and our hand washing sink go into a separate gray water system that goes through a perforated pipe that goes way out of our building and ends in a gravel pit. And it has a little, I don't know what this is called either, but a critter cage, a critter cover over the end of it so that animals don't crawl up into that, which I've heard is also something that could possibly happen. I don't know what the likelihood of that is. So Caleb, were there any other questions on construction? The next thing I was thinking of talking about was equipment. And then I also wanted to talk about efficiency things that we've done, but I can do that.
So far, the only question is about the CoolBot and using it in the winter versus putting in a heater. And maybe that'll be something you address later anyway.
I can do that now because so the question is there. I think what the question is do we still need to cool it in the winter? Like, is that AC still cooling in the winter time, even though it's sort of pulling cold air in from outside? And would you instead, so oftentimes we had a different CoolBot cooler that was outside. It wasn't in an insulated building. And in the colder times of months, we would put a little space heater and fans in that space instead of the AC so that it would warm instead of cool. And we do not have to do that in this one. We were fully prepared. We put in enough power to be able to run a heater if that was the case, but it still cools in the winter time. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, so you're getting enough heat from the rest of the building that keeps it from getting too cold. A related question just popped up, which is, do you have an AC unit that cools your whole wash area? And I'm guessing that's the heat pumps that you have.
Yeah, so these, and I had never heard of these until we put them in, but this behind me, that's a heat pump head, and it cools and it heats. It takes moisture out of outside air, and there are compressors that are on the outside of our building, and it does some sort of magic where it turns moisture into either heat or cool. And they can also, like I said, they can also dry a space. They're also dehumidifiers. So that's what that is. And in Vermont, I don't know about other states, but there are, and I always get this wrong if it's a tax credit. I think it's a tax credit that you get for installing efficient heating systems. And so they actually ended up being incredibly affordable for us. Okay, you think we're good on questions? Hey, I'm maskless doing a presentation. Hi. There's our exhibit of crew entrance zone. Okay, so going into equipment. So we do a lot of cut greens on our farm. We do a lot of different salad greens. So we have, let me see if I can get all of this in the back. We have zones set up. These right here are, these are 80-gallon livestock tubs that we just get at our local farm supply store. We have put on them these drains. They're just ball valves that you can also get at, we just got them at the hardware store. And we do a triple wash for most of our salad greens. I know a lot of farms do a two-step process rather than a triple wash, which would be a bubbler and then a sanitizer dunk. And we don't do that yet. It's a decision that we readdress every year with our crew and with our customers. And that so far, until COVID, I don't know if people will feel differently this year, but so far people have not wanted sanitizer on their food. So that's just what we do here. I am not necessarily anti-sanidate, but that's what we do. So triple wash, and then we just recently, you can see it better on this one, we just recently got these guys off of cinder blocks, and we had a local metal shop fabricate these stands for our tubs. We just took a tub over there and said, okay, it's gonna be full of 50 gallons of water, so it needs to be that strong. And they made us these really awesome stands so that we can more easily move these now and squeegee our whole floor. So that's an exciting thing for us. Over here, we have a produce safety plan through an organization called CAPS, C-A-P-S, here in Vermont. It's a peer-to-peer, so farmers judging other farmers' produce safety plans and assisting and improving. And part of our produce safety plan is that we harvest into containers that are not the same ones that we put clean produce into. So we only put clean produce into either these gray flip top totes or wax boxes, and everything else, if it's colored, is for harvesting. So we also just recently got all these little tote dollies. We got these from Global Industrial, but a lot of places sell them. And so we can wheel a stack of totes right out to our van. And you will notice that a lot of everything in here is everything on wheels. As much as we could put things on wheels, we do. These, let me see if I have an empty one. I don't. I'm just gonna tip this. So this is a stack of clean totes, and I just took this bottom one, has a piece of plywood on the bottom with casters. This one is fixed. Oh, is that a question? No. This one is fixed on the bottom, so it can roll and it fits perfectly into our stack of totes. Other equipment things. So we got a produce safety grant this last year, which enabled us to buy 3 different, these are stainless steel tables on wheels. And we also got, and I like these even better actually, these are heavy duty plastic carts that we use to set up mobile bagging stations. So when we come in the morning, we'll have people set up their stations based on what we're harvesting and packing that day. And so most of the equipment that they'll need is underneath the cart, and they just wheel it to wherever's comfortable for them and add a scale, and they're ready to go. And then the other wheelies that we have, these are carts. So a couple years ago, our local Macy's went out of business, and we saw that they were going out of business, and it was like everything for sale. And we thought, oh, we really need pants. So Jake and I went to go buy some pants from the Macy's, and we went inside, and they meant that they were selling all their shelving, like everything. Shelving and mannequins is really what they were selling, not pants anymore. And so we bought a ton of these types of shelves from Macy's, and then we put wheels on the bottom. We put wheels on them, and they're okay. They're awesome until you put a ton of weight on them, and then the casters sort of start bending, and they're just not as reliable. You can see it's pretty wobbly. And so we recently got these more heavy duty carts that are the same dimensions. And the reason the dimensions are important is this is our walk-in. And if you're doing a cool bot walk-in, the most frustrating thing that I've had with it is that, well, it's not the cool bot's fault, but we just end up putting a regular insulated door on from, Home Depot or something, and it has a threshold. And so we have this funny wooden ramp to get over the threshold, but it works okay. So I'm gonna flip around and show you inside our walk-in. So inside here, we have all of so the walls are lined with those same shelves that we got at Macy's. And then these carts fit right in perfectly. And we can fit 4 of them in here. So we end up almost tripling our capacity by sizing it so that those carts fit right in. And I'll talk about that when I get to the efficiency thing. So that is that for equipment. I'm looking around. I think that is it. The only other thing I didn't mention from the beginning is that we, as far as the design process, like I said, thinking really like with the trench drain, designing it to what you're harvesting, we also thought a lot about how to design the space based on how we operate, how we sell things, what we produce. And so 2 years, I think, before we built this. We were designing it, and we had watched, there's that movie that I can never remember the name about McDonald's, where it's about like the first McDonald's that started, and there's this scene where they're trying to make it more efficient than making the hamburgers, and they went to a tennis court and they mapped out the kitchen and had the employees actually mime making hamburgers, and then they kept moving the equipment around on the tennis court so that they were making the process more and more efficient. And so we did that. We were packing after our tub in the woods. We moved to basically a covered porch that didn't have walls but did have a Quillbot walk-in on it. And so we were using that to try to think like, oh, this is too small, it doesn't feel right. And then we came out to this space where we thought we were going to build this building, and it was in the winter, so we stomped out in the snow the dimensions that we thought we wanted and mapped out the equipment that we had at the time. And then we held totes and we said, okay, is this enough space for us to walk if we both were holding a tote to get past each other? No, we need to go bigger, et cetera, et cetera. And so we did that as a design process. We also looked a lot to lean, and Ben Hartman was super helpful in his lean design for talking about spaghetti diagrams. And I won't get into that, but we did do some spaghetti diagrams watching our crew pack different items, and that helped us do some of the design. So a big piece that came out in that is that there's a linear flow to this space. So on this end, that's that big door where the dirty produce comes in. And the idea is that it starts dirty there. It comes through that wash line. It ends up clean where I'm standing. And then it goes straight through to that door right there, which is our van is parked outside. So none of our clean produce should be backtracking into a dirty zone, if that makes sense. Any questions, Caleb, before I?
Yeah, one just popped up about totes. Since you brought them up, do you have a preferred tote size?
Ooh, I do. And I can't off the top of my head remember what the actual sizes are. We buy them from reusable transport company or something like that. It's the same sizes as, I think Global Industrial has the same sizes. I think they're the same sizes as the buckthorn. And so we use the shorter one and the taller one, but we don't use the smallest one. So there's 3 sizes and we use 2 of them. We use the taller one. I'm gonna pull a couple out. We use the shorter one for bagged greens. So these are the two sizes, and this one works well for anything fluffy, heads of lettuce, bunches of greens, that sort of thing. And then this one is the one that we use the most of, and it fits about, we usually do about 3 pounds of cut greens into one this size. I know that's not the best answer of exactly what dimensions they are. One of them has a 21 in it. I think that's this one. And I think this one's 18, but the bottoms are the same. Any other?
Yeah, a couple other questions popped up. One was about your wash line. They meant you showed the triple wash area, but they were wondering what the other 2 stock tanks are for.
Aha, just for looks. We use these for dunking. We call these our dunk tubs. And I'll show you what it looks like set up. They're sort of auxiliary bins. We'll use them if we're really cranking in here and we have triple washes going and we need more space to dunk things. We pretty much wash everything that comes through. And so this looks like, so we have more of these closet shelves. So this would look like it would be full of head lettuce or bunched greens or something like that that's not going through the triple wash. And then we put 2 of these on here so that we can set stuff up here to drip dry. They don't dry, but to let them drip before we pack them away.
And then one last question. I'm not entirely sure what the motivation for this question is, but they're wondering what direction the wash area faces. Are those north facing windows? I think maybe for sun, that would be heating or wilting produce.
That's a very good question. These are south facing. And the reason is that, well, they're as south as we could get with our tree line. So they're kind of southwest. And the motivation is that in the winter time, the sun comes through, and in the summertime, it doesn't until late in the day. And we knew that just from being here long enough, we knew that that was going to be okay. But that is a significant question of if summertime sun would come through those windows, but our sun is high enough in the sky that it doesn't. And a lot of the inspiration for building this space was trying to have employee retention. And so having a space that was really nice to be in. And I got a great piece of advice from Krista Alexander at Jericho Settlers Farm, who said to make the space, to have as big of windows as you can. And it really helps with people.
Can you just listen out for Margaret? And if she has any issues, come out and find Mom or me.
I think somebody just joined who's not yet muted.
I think I got it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thanks. And these windows they're reclaimed sliding glass doors from a ski area that's up the road from us. So they're a double paned sliding glass door that we sort of jerry rigged to fit in right there. So the high ceilings and having everything painted white and really nice and bright in here, that's another lean. That's something that Ben talks about. That's also for employee happiness.
A few more questions have been popping up. Some that might be a little quick and easy. A question about the size of the dunk tanks. And it looks like you maybe had 2 sizes.
They're all the same size, and they're 80 gallon.
80 gallon. Another one was the size of your walk-in.
The exact size. I'm gonna have to, let's table that one, and I'll ask Jake when he comes down here.
And then
he's better with dimensions.
One last one was about your water. They're assuming you're using well water and wondering if you need to treat it at all, or if you have any other special considerations.
We are on well water, and it is not treated. We've had it, we test it every year as part of our produce safety plan for coliform and E. coli. And we've also had it tested for different minerals that just our well guys did. And we don't have to treat it. It does smell sulfury, which is kind of a side note. So it's very stinky in here in the mornings, but apparently that's not a problem. So it's well water. One thing for us, we were not prepared at all when we drilled the well for this building. We have another well that has a good capacity to it. This one is only 2 gallons per minute, and we went to like 426 feet or something before we gave up. And that was really scary to be able to live on and wash produce with that. But the well shaft is so deep that the water that's actually in the shaft, there's enough in there that we haven't, knock on wood, had a capacity problem yet. Any others before some sort of efficiency type?
I think we've satisfied a lot of curiosity.
Okay, cool. All right, so I am a real efficiency nerd. I really love labels and making things flow. And we talk a lot on our farm about solving frustrations. So we found that whatever is the most frustrating thing to the most people is where we should invest our time and money, because it helps us be happier, but be more profitable. So we have a space in our employee area for frustrations, and we try to address them as quickly as possible. And the biggest one that was happening over and over, and especially as we have grown and have more people working here, and we now have a baby, and so Jake and I aren't in the washroom all the time anymore. And so there are always a ton of questions of like, oh, it says this, but is that actually what the customer wants? Or how should we pack this thing? So there were all these questions about packing that we were really struggling with communicating without being constantly on the walkie-talkie or needing to come down all the time to answer those questions. So the biggest, bestest thing about our WashPack system, I think, is this board here. This is our packing board. And I could go through all of it if we want to. I'll breeze by it right now and see if we have time later. But it is a way that we use colored, you can't tell from that distance, but see, we have these colored magnets here, green, purple, and there's no yellow, but here's the code here. So the idea with this board is that anybody at any time could come up to the board and be able to see what is getting worked on, who it's for, how it's packed, and then be able to choose, okay, all those things are being worked on right now. I'm going to work on the next thing. I'm going to claim it as my own. And then when I'm finished, I'm going to put a different color up there and tell everybody that it's done and finished. And so I don't know, there's always questions on this, so I will probably come back to it, but for now, I'm going to go past it. This little board here is what someone would take, and this is all magnetic. Another cool thing about using roofing for the walls is that walls are also magnetic in here, which is fun. So this little board is what somebody will take in to the walk-in in the morning, and they'll write an inventory on here. So they'll look at what we're harvesting or packing for the day, and then they'll take this and they'll write down like, okay, arugula, do we have any in the cooler? They'll write down how much we have existing, so we need to know how much we have to harvest. On the back of it, there's a cull date. So the highlighted, the bold ones are the ones that we are more often looking at, but it's just a quick cheat sheet of, you know, if you see something in the walk-in that's older than the days that it says on here, then we are either sending it to the pigs, we're eating it ourselves, we're not going to send it out to a customer. So that answers the question of, hey, we have cucumbers from, you know, August 2nd. Can we still give those out? So that answers those questions. And we have a whole process for making sure. My biggest frustration is getting to CSA and not having something that I need. So we have a whole lot of things that answer that question, which we could go into if we have time. This is a cheat sheet for different weights. So these are the weights that we do for, this is one of our wholesale customers who sells retail bagged greens. And then this is what we do for CSA. And then if for some reason you can't tear a lug or a crate or something, there's some tear weights on there. This is our speed queen. We can talk about that too if we want to later. And then this is I don't know. I was really excited when we put labels up on here to be able to spool them out. This is something we got from Macy's as well. Lots of labels for clean rags versus usually there's a little bin there for dirty rags, and just simple things like labeling what is inside each of those boxes so you don't have to dig around and see what's in there. And then in the walk-in, we do add-ons for our CSA, like meat, things like that. So we also have these big freezers. And so we write on the top of them. So in week 4 of CSA, that's what people are getting, so that I don't have to tell people what to pack for the day. we have cheat sheets above each area. So this is each of our CSA locations and how many different, this is bread. So how many breads to pack for each location. So bread and meat gets packed right here. We really try to have the information that's needed at the place that it's needed. So people aren't having to walk around all the time. And in the walk-in, one of the things that is always difficult is finding the thing that you're looking for. So we've labeled different sections. Red square is a complicated inside joke, but it things like that. Little label. This is the farmer zone.
I think-
got we can see what was in there. So a farm manager got us a what's that?
I think we
Can you
just
hear me
had
in there?
a little connection glitch. I don't know if it's the walk-in but you're coming through now. You were starting with, I think, red square as a joke.
We ended at red square.
That's the last I got.
That's the last you got. Okay, I think it's because I closed the door. So I'm gonna keep it open and see if that works better. Okay, so you can still see there's different labels for different types of things. So along the back, those are our cut greens, those are bunched greens, roots, all the zones are labeled. And then this farmer zone here, I really like this right here is a farmer bin. So all for produce for crew to use. And it used to just be another gray flip top tote, but we couldn't see what was inside and it would rot and get gross and nobody ever wanted to clean it out, including myself. And so somebody got a clear bin for us last season and we can now see what's in there and see if things are going bad. So that's been a really sweet innovation for us. We also have that little beehive looking thing right there is a temperature sensor. So we have sensors in there and in this space, which will alert us if the temperature drops or raises above a certain number, which has been awesome because a few times the door has been left open, like in the winter, and our whole heating system is frozen. So alarms are nice. And what else? I have 10-ish minutes left. So I could go back to the board or I could talk about the spinner or if there are questions.
There are some questions if you're up for them.
Yeah.
What brand or type of sensors are you using? Is the first one.
The brand is I'm On It. And we have those because we worked with a friend of ours who runs Smart Farm Innovations is his business. And he sets up temperature monitoring systems and he uses I'm On It.
The next was, this is a real quick one. What type of white marker are you using?
Oh, yeah. I will show you. That's something. Crafty Croc is the brand that I found that works the best. And we've been using them on these same totes for eight years maybe, and they're still great. You cannot write on them if there is standing water on the tote. It's too wet. So we just have, when we're setting up our stations in the morning, we use a microfiber cloth. So everybody has a microfiber cloth where they can just dry off the tote and be able to label it that way.
And then it looks like you get an excuse to talk about the Speed Queen. Someone is wondering about your greens drying mechanism.
Yeah. So Speed Queen, this is a UVM trial that we've been part of. And I am sorry about that noise. She's now on wheels, so I'm gonna scooch her out for you. Whoop. Okay, Speed Queen. Speed Clean is a commercial washing machine called Speed Clean, and it has been modified, and the instructions are on the UVM website for how to do that. It has a automatic stop, which I really like. So on a regular, like a Maytag or something, you know, it gets to the end of its spin cycle and it slowly spins down. This one goes to a full stop as soon as it's done, which saves a ton of time in spinning. What else about it? These baskets are called different things: fish baskets, clam baskets, something you can find from a fishery supply store. They fit right into the Speed Clean, which is nice. So the latest modification that they've been working on is we couldn't clean underneath it because it's just really heavy and it's on these little feet, and we tried to put wheels on, but as soon as the floor got wet, it moved around. So they put this heavy duty dolly on the back of it so that we can move it around, which is really nice because then also the cord can be wrapped up and out of the way. He's also put on here, I just noticed, a spin, what do you call that? An hour meter and spin counter. So we should know the lifespan based on, so we're tracking total pounds of greens through the Speed Queen until she dies. So we should know amount of greens in the lifespan of a Speed Queen by the end of this project. And I think that's the next thing that we've been trying to brainstorm is to make it a little bit safer. I would love to put some sort of skirt around the bottom here so that the mechanical parts are free of water. And then the other thing that just makes me nervous is, you know, as these are spinning, I'm always nervous that somebody's going to walk through and catch their finger on a spinning handle. And so I don't know if there's some sort of casing with a lid that could eventually be put on. I'll show you. This is our old one, is relegated to the corner now, but we had this plexiglass lid on it so that it was felt a little safer. It didn't really work because the handles were too high anyway, so we had to have it open all the time, but I guess it's the thought that counts, maybe. That's the Speed Queen. Highly recommended.
And I guess I have one last question that someone sent to me, and this is kind of, I think it popped up when we were just finishing up with talking about the well, and they were wondering if you were also irrigating with that same well water, but it's a different well. I imagine it's similar considerations.
Different well, it's higher capacity. That one was fracked, and it was the only piece of infrastructure that was on the property when we started. And it has more of a, depending on the year, 20 to 40 gallon capacity. And we share it with the neighboring summer camp who fills their pond with it. So it's not a great irrigation source, but it's what we have. Yeah. Same water though, great water.
Well, we've been getting through every question we've gotten, and you're wrapping up with 5 minutes here. Are there any more? I see one person's asking if the Speed Queen is noisy. And I think there's actually there's a YouTube video, I think, from UVM Ag Engineering where you can hear it in the works. If not from them, at least from across the fence, which is a Vermont television production that showcases extension things.
Yeah, it's awesome. The one that we had before, it's a Maytag, and it was so loud, people would wear noise canceling headphones when they were washing greens, but this one you can talk over it and hear each other just fine. Any other?
Let's
hear more about the board.
Yeah, exactly.
I saw that pop up. Okay, this is how it works. I will show you. Okay, across the top where there's some glare, these are, focusing on my hand. Those are all of our customers. And it's hard to tell with my camera, but each one is in a different color, or there's different colors, and those correspond to the day of the week that they're delivered. So the first ones are all in pink. Those all went out on Tuesday. The next section's green. Those went out Wednesday. And then the red ones Thursday and brown Friday. And then on this side, these are the crops that we're currently harvesting. And then pretty straightforward, these are the number of each crop going to each customer. So if I'm coming up here and say, this is what it would look like for this customer, there's nothing here. So back to that red square inside joke, we actually do use red squares. So say we're doing spinach for, this is a CSA location, Jake or I would prep the board and we put a red square up there. That would mean go into the walk-in and grab the older stuff and use that first. So that's one communication thing we'd use there. If I am coming in here and I'm packing, I'm ready to go, I'm gonna pack that spinach. I claim it with a yellow magnet. So that means to me, okay, somebody's working on spinach. So if I'm the second person, I come up to the board, okay, someone's working on spinach. I'm gonna work instead on Hakurai. So I'll put my yellow there. When we're done packing, it's all packed, labeled, ready to go in its final tote. Nothing else has to be done to it. You get to switch it over to a green. The purple is like if we're packing shares, this means it's counted out, it's packed somewhere, but for some reason it's not in its final orientation. So maybe it needs to be redistributed into people's individual shares or something like that. And then the last color that we have, I took them all because we're actually starting a new board.
Uh-oh, we lost you again. For everybody else, if you notice, Anna just put an evaluation into the chat. It'd be great if you could take a moment to fill that out. And Taylor, I think we maybe have you again.
Okay, I'm here. I've got one more little color, which is usually we'll have one person look at the board towards the end of a wash pack. And there's a lot going on up here. So say this little one, nobody noticed that one didn't get worked on. Somebody will come up and check every column and just flag it with an orange to make sure that it happens at the end of the day. And then the last little piece is that we'll do a tote tally. So say we're back at the same customer, one person stands here and goes down the line and says, okay, how many bins of arugula, how many bins of spinach? Somebody else is looking at the actual bins, and we just write that on here. This is just a laminated piece of paper. So we've got the location and the number of totes, and then this gets magneted to those carts that I showed you earlier, or an invoice goes with it if it's a wholesale customer. That way, whoever's delivering can look at this and say, okay, I should have, 20 totes or 60 totes or whatever. And then that way we miss less problems. And that's the board. We love it.
And I think we're coming up on time.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Taylor.
Yeah, you bet. I hope it was helpful.
That's awesome.
think,
Thank you.
yeah, I imagine everyone here is very thankful and appreciative of your time. Here.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me. And I'm sorry I tried to get Theo into his Mafka onesie for this event, but it was a little too cold. Next.
Thanks, Taylor. And there are a lot of chats of thank yous coming in if you're not seeing them, just so you know.
Awesome. Thank